One of the neat things, speaking of transportation, about Russia is that they have the world's longest train line. It takes about 2 weeks. It's called the Trans Siberian Railroad, and it connects Western Russia to Eastern Russia. It is long. Like I said, it's 2 weeks long. You can go from Vladivostok to St. Petersburg. Um, but yeah, it's a very long line. They're working on trying to streamline London to Vladivostok, which you can do that now with future plans of a possibility of a line that stretches across Siberia toward Alaska, which I think is kind of ridiculous, but anyway. The main religions of Russia, one is Russian Orthodoxy, which is similar to Catholicism, but then different than Catholicism. Um, and the main chapel, their pope, is located in Moscow. Um, it's kind of like Greek Orthodoxy, if you know what that is. There are other branches of Christianity that are growing, and Islam is particularly popular in the southeastern part, the Asian part of the former Soviet Union. This stands Kazakhstan, Afghanistan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and also places like Azerbaijan. So now we move into the specific areas. We have the Baltics, is what they're called. And the Baltics are called the Baltics because they are on the Baltic Sea. Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. They have since 1991, since the collapse of the Soviet Union, they've moved closer to the European Union than they have the Soviet Union. They've been probably the three that have been the most successful to move away from uh, the old Soviet era. They have I wouldn't say a dislike of Russians. I know it's kind of what I used, but they just don't want to affiliate with Russia. They would rather deal with Finland or Sweden or Germany or Poland instead of Russia. And they've been very successful. They have lots of technology, and basketball is really popular in Lithuania and also Latvia and Estonia. Um, yeah, sorry, I know this is kind of disjuncted. Let's move on to the southwest. We have Belarus, and Belarus has a historical tie to Russia, uh, been historically linked to Russia for years. And you could say to a degree that it wants to reunite with Russia because since the collapse of the Soviet Union, Belarus's military might hasn't been, or prominence and economy haven't been as successful as they were during the Soviet era. So there are people here and in other countries that say, hey, I would like to go back to being part of the Soviet Union. And so they're kind of like a little tag along of Russia. But they're also a country that connects lots of Europe, especially Poland and other points further west, to Russia. So it's a very important crossroads for trade. You also have the Ukraine, which has had this split between being pro-Russia and pro-Europe. During the Cold War, a lot of Russians moved to the Ukraine because it's nice, it's warm, it's one of the warmest places in the former Soviet Union, and there's a large naval base, Sevastopol, which is down here on the bottom of the Crimea. So there are jobs there also. But the Ukraine, because of its good climate, it's warm, it grows a lot of good crops, and there's been this great divide between the pro-Soviet and pro-Ukrainian groups that live in this country today. We'll get to more of that in a second. We also have Moldova, which has been voted the saddest country in the world. Just on a scale of sad to happy, it is the saddest country in the world on vote, which really kind of is very depressing. I know they do grow fruit there, and they're very proud of their fruit. They're mainly agricultural people, which is the same for the Ukraine. Speaking of Ukraine, in the past 2 or 3 years, there's been a lot of uprisings and fightings in the Ukraine against pro-Soviet, pro-Ukrainian forces. The pro-Soviet, pro-Russian forces, sorry, want to join back with Russia and want to split off from the Ukraine. And the Ukrainian people are saying, no, 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 this is part of the Ukraine. We're our own separate country. So we have these images of military people. The Ukrainian army isn't very good. And so the Russians are sending in like secret forces as regular civilians to fight against this Ukrainian army. And so you see these really powerful images of people like this guy right here, who's Russian Orthodox, praying for peace. In Moldova, you have this area right here called Transdniester, which is populated by Russian people. And they basically have said, we don't want to be part of Moldova because this is where all the rich supplies are. There's a lot of iron and coal in this region. And so they have said, we're part of Russia. We don't want to be part of you. And they keep pushing for joining Russia, which is actually what the Crimea has done. It is actually voted in what could be an illegal voting to vote to break away from the Ukraine and become part of Russia, which it has. And now we move to the Caucasus. And the Caucasus has over 50 different people groups. It has a very warm climate, which draws a lot of tourists. Georgia is known for its citrus, tea, and fruits. Azerbaijan is very well known for its oil. And Armenia, there are a lot of Armenians that also live in parts of Turkey. And so during World War I, Turkey actually came in and killed thousands, if not millions, of Armenians. And so there's been this Turkish genocide debate on, do you call it genocide? Do you not call it genocide? And Armenians, most of them are Christians, but some of them are Muslims too. And so you have this Christian Muslim on both sides kind of debate going on here. There is Yerevan, Armenia. It's gorgeous. Look at that. That's really pretty. But yeah, old buildings too that have just kind of fallen in on themselves. You also have the steppes or the stands, which are predominantly Muslim, very dry. They're known for their onions and garlic and cotton. You can take a good bribe if you work in this region because you might drive along and all of a sudden you come to a gate across the road. There's a cop there and he's like, oh, the road's closed. It's like, well, I want to go this way. Oh, well, you can pay me $4 and then you can keep on going. And then you pay them the $4, which isn't legit, but then you keep on going. And because of the shrinking of the Aral Sea, they've used a lot of the rivers, the irrigation, to water the crops like cotton here. I have a friend of mine that actually lived in this region. As you can see, it's very dry, but really neat. Look at all the rugs they have. This little bitty cow here, he's cute. There's a girl in her traditional dress. Look how dry it is. It's very, very, very dry. Even in the riverbeds, it's very dry. This is a traditional wedding. There's a guy showing off something he's got from a bighorn sheep. And there's a river valley right there, which is pretty cool.